The fire from the bellies of dragons was absent in the free cities for many years before the hatching of Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal. With the coming of Daenerys Stormborn, however, that great and terrible sight was renewed in the minds of many across the land. Some took it for fable or hearsay, but to those who had seen the hellfire wrapped in scales, it was unmistakable. Dragons roamed once more. Some men even wished to control the Targaryens' dragons, for purposes usually foul in nature, but one man existed who only wished for love. This man was Quentyn Martell. Quentyn's mission and journey were doomed from the start, yet he still persisted until it brought him to his own demise at the hands, or maws, of two of the Stormborn's dragons. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Quentyn Martell's story was that of a classic tragedy written in the modern day, a tale of a man who desired one thing above all else, and how that one thing forced him to make a mortal mistake. So, who exactly is Quentyn Martell, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Quentyn Martell was born to Prince Doran Martell of Dorne and his wife Lady Mellario of Norvos in the year 281 AC. Quentyn was the eldest son of Prince Doran, but he was not the oldest child. His sister, Arianne Martell, held that title. Growing up, Quentyn was a reserved youth, a trait he carried into adulthood. He was solemn and cautious, often overtaken by fear of failure. As he became a man and began to take on the responsibilities awaiting him since birth, this characteristic only worsened. The clouds of doubt hung over the head of the young Dornish prince at every turn. Despite his societal status, Quentyn Martell was never popular amongst the women and girls at court, never having bedded a single one. Aside from his dour demeanor, which assuredly pushed potential mates away, Quentyn was not considered handsome. Nor was he ugly, but he inherited many traits from his father, who was also not known as an attractive man. Like Doran, Quentyn was short and stocky, and had a face graced by brown eyes and hair, a square jaw, a large nose, and a mouth that rarely smiled. However, the heir to Dorne had little time to show his face in the courts of Sunspear, as he was shipped off to Euronwood at an early age in order to settle a blood debt between the houses, and quell the rumors that his uncle Oberyn had fought a duel against Lord Edgar Euronwood with a poisoned blade. While Lady Mellario disagreed with the decision, Doran found it to be the best solution to maintain peace. And so, Quentyn grew up and came of age in Euronwood, where Lord Anders became like a second father, and his son Cletus, Quentyn's best friend. When he was 9 years old, Quentyn was informed through letter that his father intended to name him heir to Dorne, going against the regent's custom. While his sister Arianne fumed until learning of the true reason for the decision, Quentyn merely shouldered the added responsibility and approached his studies with more concentration. Growing older and more beloved in Euronwood, Quentyn made even more friends and allies, including Cletus's cousin Archibald, Jairus Drinkwater, and Willem Wells, and even accepted the grant of knighthood from Lord Anders Euronwood, an offer he'd turned down from his uncle Oberyn. Back in his homeland of Dorne, however, Quentyn was little known amongst his future subjects. Throughout the first 4 books in A Song of Ice and Fire, Quentyn is mentioned and alluded to, though not appearing in the flesh. In A Feast for Crows, the 4th volume, the whereabouts of Quentyn are believed to be in the Boneway with Lord Anders and the rest of the Euronwood host, though in actuality he has crossed the narrow sea with his friends at the behest of his father. His sister Arianne, after realizing the truth, believes he has been sent there to recruit an army so as to secure his place as heir to Dorne, but she eventually learns the truth after her own trials and tribulations. Meanwhile, in A Dance with Dragons, Quentyn has a destiny of his own to fulfill. Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons and queen of Meereen, is without a husband. Realizing the implications of this fact, Quentyn's father, the great Doran Martell, sends his son in search of the Targaryen girl, to wed her and even bring her to Dorne. No longer would the south of Westeros be dismissed and disregarded, for with the Mother of Dragons at the side of the Prince-to-be, Dorne would hold the most power of all the Seven Kingdoms. With his ragtag band of friends, including Cletus and Archibald Euronwood, Jairus Drinkwater, Willem Wells, and Maester Kedry, Quentyn sets sail from Planky Town and arrives in Lys, changing ships under disguise. The party is attacked on the water near the disputed lands, resulting in the deaths of Cletus, Willem, and Kedry, much to the regret of Quentyn, who feels personal responsibility. The 3 remaining companions are forced to linger in Volantis as they search for a ship and crew crazy enough to bring them into the heat of Daenerys' war campaign. Jairus, being the most handsome and presentable of the trio, adopts the role of a merchant, with Quentyn and Archibald as his servants. In order to finally reach Meereen and the revered Daenerys Targaryen, the Dornishmen join the Windblown, a free company of mercenaries on the side of the Yunkishmen, where Quentyn receives the nickname Frog under the guise of a squire to Archibald, now called Greenguts. They, along with Jairus, fight in the siege of Astapor, and plan to desert the company soon after, but are called to a meeting with the Tattered Prince, the leader of the Windblown. The prince explains that Quentyn, along with his friends and the other Westerosi in the company, are to feign defection to Daenerys' side to act as a safety net for the Windblown. Having somehow stumbled into the exact situation he desired, Quentyn makes for Meereen. He and the others are found by Daario Naharis and the Stormcrows, and are brought the rest of the way to the city and into an audience with Daenerys herself. Partially dropping his disguise, Quentyn reveals that he and his 2 companions are knights, but cannot reveal their true identities in a full court. The chamber is cleared, and the heir to Dorne introduces himself in full. He presents her with a gift, the scroll containing the wedding pact to be carried out by Viserys Targaryen and Quentyn Martell, in return for Dorne's aid in retaking the Iron Throne. Quentyn explains to Daenerys that as her brother is dead, he would have the deal altered, and that he, Quentyn Martell, would wed her, Daenerys Targaryen, in exchange for the same promised help. Quentyn is mocked and ridiculed by Daario, who believes him weak and naive, but Daenerys contrastingly offers the Dornishmen grand hospitality. She refuses the wedding pact, however, stating that although she will undoubtedly still require the aid of Dorne in her conquest, she is scheduled to marry the Meereenese noble Hisdar zo Loraq quite soon. The young prince is quite disheartened, but tries again the next day, which is also the day of her wedding. Daenerys refuses again, though she says that he's done nothing to displease her. Spurned once more, Quentyn reveals that the other Westerosi are agents from the Windblown, leading to their arrest. After Daenerys is wed, Quentyn is introduced to Rhaegal and Viserion, 2 of her 3 dragons, on the night of the peace signing between Meereen and Yunkai. Quentyn quakes at the sight of the grand beasts, but relays to the queen that he possesses some amount of Targaryen blood in his veins. Daenerys kindly suggests he return to Dorne and to safety, but now it is Quentyn who refuses her offer. Again and again, he persists to gain audience with the Mother of Dragons, desperate to gain her favor and reverse the results of her Meereenese wedding, but he finally loses his chance on the day of the reopening of Daznak's pit. Daenerys is carried away on the back of Drogon after attempts at her life were taken, and with her, Quentyn's hope at accomplishing his task. In the chaotic aftermath of the tumult at Daznak's pit, Quentyn is briefly questioned about any involvement in the attempted assassination, but is quickly deemed innocent. Meereen is in shambles, and Sir Barristan Selmy advises the 3 Dornishmen to return home at once. Again, Quentyn refuses, saying that he cannot return with nothing to show for his efforts. Jairus and Archibald voice their agreement with the old knight to their friend, but Quentyn has no intention of leaving. Instead, he hatches a grand scheme in his mind, one so powerful Daenerys will have to see the lengths to which he would go to fulfill his mission. Quentyn seeks to claim one of her 2 remaining dragons, for he admitted himself he carries Targaryen blood within him. Returning to the Tattered Prince, Quentyn enlists the help of the Windblown in capturing and holding down a dragon in return for the city of Pentos. Going ahead with the plan, Quentyn and his companions disguise themselves as brazen beasts, and although they run into some trouble on account of Sir Barristan's coup occurring parallel to their own scheme, they eventually make their way to the two caged beasts. While his companions wait behind, Quentyn swallows his fear and foolishly plunges straight into the dragon's den. Before him stands Viserion, scales the color of cream and wings as gold as the coins of Westeros. The Dornishman is dwarfed by the creature and has no thoughts on how exactly to tame it, other than to rely on what dragon blood he himself has flowing through him. But something is amiss, for only one dragon sits in wait. As he realizes his folly, Quentyn is engulfed by flame from the jaws of the green and bronze Rhaegal, who sits in wait behind his back. The Windblown scatter, and the two dragons escape their captivity, taking to the skies. Quentyn, meanwhile, is left to perish by all save his most loyal friends, Jaehaerys and Archibald. For 3 agonizing days, Quentyn lies in Daenerys' royal bed, receiving treatment from Missandei. His burns grow no better, however, and he perishes on the 3rd day. Instead of laying at the side of the Stormborn as husband and wife, king and queen, Quentyn lies alone, scorned and burnt almost beyond recognition, while Daenerys is nowhere to be found. Sir Barristan meets with Jaehaerys and Archibald, who insist that Quentyn took such a rash action for love of the Mother of Dragons, but the old knight believes he did so out of a sense of duty and desperation. In either case, Quentyn Martell of Dorne met his doom, first in a rain of agonizing fire, then in a bed that should have been his. Quentyn's story in the greater narrative of A Song of Ice and Fire may appear quite pointless at first glance. After all, how is the overall plot furthered aside from the release of Rhaegal and Viserion into the wild? What even is the point of it? I believe the answer lies at the heart of the story. The tale of Quentyn Martell is a classic tragedy told in a modern manner. Quentyn is called upon to complete a task by his father, who speaks on behalf of the realm of Dorne. He is to sail across the sea and bring back and marry Daenerys Targaryen. While this is certainly a challenge for any man, it is especially so for Quentyn because of his demeanor and personality. He is reserved and not particularly confident in regards to women, even stating that he feared Daenerys more than her dragons. Nevertheless, he persists in his quest, losing half of his friends along the way, out of a sense of duty to his father and to Dorne. He is so driven by this trait that it becomes his fatal flaw, pushing him to carry out a foolhardy and desperate attempt to win Daenerys over. While his friends could see the many problems with Quentyn's idea of taming a dragon, the prince himself was either willfully ignorant or dismissively desperate. He rationalized that because of a hint of Targaryen in his blood, he could do what no other living person save Daenerys could do. But only he is surprised when the dragons wreath him in searing flame. Throughout his doomed quest, Quentyn fretted over failure, even admitting he wouldn't return home empty-handed. While this is a noble sentiment, it carries him straight to his grave. Even in the moments before burning to a crisp, the Dornishman believes he has a chance at success, blinded by his fatal flaw. And so it is that his story mirrors classic tragedies of the past. A well-meaning hero, driven by a respectable trait, suffers death and destruction as that trait becomes his undoing. Quentyn Martell may never have been up to the task set forth to him, but that did little to stop him from trying. Quentyn Martell of Dorne set out from his homeland and stumbled all the way to Meereen with hopes at forging a royal alliance. Instead, he met only his death, swallowed up in dragonfire, and left to suffer for 3 days. Quentyn's story is one somewhat unlike those of others in A Song of Ice and Fire, in that it harkens back to an older, more classical world. His arc is a tragedy through and through, as he is led to death by his own suffocating sense of duty and fear of failure. Quentyn Martell deserved better, but those who read his tale knew he would not get a chance at the life he truly desired. And so, that's it for this video. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new, I'd love to have you. And while you're at it, check out my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive fiction and more, and sign up to my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links will be in the description below, so I hope you check them out. And like always, I will see you next time.